Welcome to the online lectures for software engineering. In the previous class, we have studied the software engineering principles, the communication and planning principles. In today's class, we'll be starting with the modeling practices. Now, modeling is divided into two types, that is analysis and design. Now, we are going to study all of this. There are different principles for analysis and design. We're going to study them separately. Now, going on to the analysis model. Now, this analysis modeling, within the analysis model, there are multiple analysis models that are being designed. Each serves its own purpose and each have got its own point of view. But no matter the different analysis models we have, you're going to follow a set of principles for all the analysis models. Coming on to the first principle, the information domain of problem must be represented and understood. Now, what does the information domain consist of? Now, this information domain, it is going to consist of all the information that flow into the system and all the information that flow out of the system. Now, the information that flow into the system, they can be the input that can be given by the end user or any other external device. Whereas the information that flows out of the system, it is going to be a data store. That is where you're going to store your data. The data storage, the network interface that is used to transfer the data, or the different reports or graphs that are prepared by taking the input from the data, that is flow into the system and flow out of the system. All of the things need to be represented and understood. Represented means each of the things need to be documented or graphically represented. Coming on to the second principle states that the functions that the software performs must be defined. Now, in here, software functions provide direct benefit to the end user. That is, you're going to have all the internal supports that are the internal features and the external features. Now, in here, these functions that are there, these functions, whatever are used, these functions should be defined at their levels of abstraction. Now, if you remember what is the level of abstraction? Level of abstraction means the level of detail that you're giving. That's the level of abstraction, means the level of detail. Now, the level of detail, now in here, there might be one function. Now, this function can have multiple features. It can have feature 1, 2, like ranging upon the complexities, they can be multiple features. So if we take the example of word processing, now the first main features will be for the basic editing the software, basic editing. Now, if you want to edit the software in a more complex way, that is, you want different features, you want the master slide, you want different watermarks as images, watermark images. If you want all this, you need to go in more detail. That is, in here, the basic functionalities should be present at the top of, that is, they should be present at upfront on the user interface. Whereas more complex procedures, then you need to go in within, like you need to go on within the features, first file, then some specific, then you need to go in view, then slide master, then add the image, then set it as background. That each of the level of abstraction need to be given for each and every function that you're implementing within the software. The third principle is the behavior of the software must be represented. Now, in here, the behavior of the software, the behavior, it can be it is the how the software reacts with the external environment. This needs to be identified. Now, this can be done by monitoring all the data that is being collected. Monitor the data that is collected and how the software behaves, you need to identify within the third principle. Each of the thing, that is how data is being stored, how data is being processed, how it is stored, this all things need to be identified. Then based upon some specific type of information, or that is some specific interface, you're going to identify how this software behaves. How the software behaves, you're going to identify. how the software behaves based upon a specific situation. You need to identify and why it is behaving the way. All of the things need to be identified whenever you're building up the analysis model. The next principle, the fourth principle, is models that depict information, functions, and behavior must be partitioned in a manner that uncovers details in a layered fashion. Now, within the software engineering, whenever you're designing the model, the analysis model, it is the first step in the software engineering. Now in here, what are the different information functions, each of the things that are present within the software? You're going to use the strategy that is called as divide and conquer strategy is used. Now by making use of this divide and conquer strategy, if you've got a large problem, a large and a complex problem, you're going to simplify it into different sub problems. You're going to divide each of the complex problem into sub problems until you get an easy way to understand the software, until it becomes easy to understand. Then going on to the next principle, the fifth principle. The fifth principle is the analysis task should move from essential information towards the implementation details. That is, whenever you're designing a particular software, suppose you're designing a particular game. Now, suppose this particular game, it is a two-player game. Now, suppose when one, that is, each player can assist the other player to fulfill a particular task. That is the main goal. That is, the player can assist the co-player can assist the co-player to finish a task. This is your main goal. That is the essential information. This is the essential information. Now the next part is to the implementation detail. Now in here, now one player to assist his co-player, what you need to do, you need to identify that whether you're going to assist him by making use of voice input. So voice input might be used, or some keyboard commands you're using. Keyboard commands are can be typed, or by making use of joystick. Each of the things are identified. This is a detailed representation, whereas the essential information is one player needs to assist the second player. How you're implementing is what are the different features you need to implement so that this task can be fulfilled. This is the fifth principle. So these are the 5 principles within the analysis modeling phase. Coming on to the next phase, that is the design modeling. Now within the design modeling practices, now within this design model, the first principle within the design, now this first, the design model, whenever you're designing a design model, this design model, it is equivalent to an architectural plan that is used for a house. That is, you get to know what is the plumbing line that you're using, at where you're using the lights, where you're using the gas inlets, where is going to be the water line. The same way, the design is going to be similar for the software. Now there are certain principles that need to be followed while you're going for the designing part. The first principle is design should be traceable to the analysis model. Now in here, within the analysis model, we have identified that as we need to keep a track how the software is going to behave, what type of data is used, how you're storing the data, or how data is processed, or what is the external environments. Each of the things we are identifying within the analysis model or the divide and conquer strategies. So in here, the different types of data, the structure of the data that you're using, each of the things, or the different packages that might be used, or the packages that are going to be used for implementing the design, this is going to be defined into the architecture. By making use of all of the things, you're going to make the design architecture. It should be traceable to the analysis model, means none of the things should be left out, so that you do not leave anything. Each of the things are embedded within the architecture design. Because if suppose within the housing plan you're missing the where you're going to give the gas lining, it is going to be very difficult. So that is why you need to focus on each and everything that was built or identified within the analysis model, and you're going to embed each of the thing within the design architecture. Coming on to the second principle, the second principle is always consider the architecture of the system to be built. Now, an architecture is basically the skeleton of the system that you're going to build. Skeleton of system that you're going to build. That is, you're going to identify the different interfaces, the different data structures that you're going to use, each of the things you're going to identify. Now, in here, whenever, that is the first step is you need to define the architecture. You're going to define the architecture, and then you're going to identify what are the different components, what are the different component level issues that might arise. That within the architecture, when you're designing an architecture, you will get to know where each of the component is going to fix. You're going to identify the first component is going to be there, then the second component, then the third. So when you have the architecture, you will get to know what is where each component is going to be placed. Now, when you know where each component will be placed, you will get to, then it is easy to identify the different component level issues that are going to arise. The third principle is design of data is important as design of processing functions. That is, whenever you're designing a software, you need to first focus on the different types of data that it is going to use. Whether it is like within the images, you've got different types of formats. You within the MP3, you've got different types of formats. So what type of data you're using, it is important as it is as important as designing the different functions, because in here the entire processing of information is based upon the type of data that you're using, because all the functions that you're defining, they need to be compatible with the data that you're going to use within the software. That is why the design of the data is also important as designing of the processing functions. The fourth principle is interfaces must be designed. Now in here, there are two types of interfaces. You're going to have external interface and you're going to have internal interface. So in here, you need to focus on the internal as well as the external interfaces to identify how the data is going to flow from one component to other component within a system, or from one component to another component of the system. Then how much efficient is the software that you're designing. Now in here, when you identify how the data is going to flow, how efficient the system is, or how you're going to identify the different errors, or how simple the design is. If you define an interface, if an interface is well defined, it becomes easy for integrating all the components within the software, and it is also going to help the tester to test all the components. Now within this, if you have a well defined interface, it is going to help with integration of components. That is, if suppose a software is made up of 3-4 components, how you're going to integrate all of them within the architecture, it becomes easy. And then it also becomes easy for the testers, that is the people that are going to test, to identify whether each and every component is doing its function, whether it is completing its task or not. Coming on to the fifth principle, the fifth principle states that user interface must be tuned to the needs of the end user. Now within this principle, if suppose the internal functions that you're using, whenever you're designing the software, the internal functions that you're using, no matter how well you've designed all those interfaces, the internal functions, if the interface that is visible, the external interface or the graphical user interface, anything that you're using, if this interface is poorly designed, it is going to result to the conclusion that the software is bad. So in here, if you are not just going to focus upon the internal functions, but you're also going to focus on how this is going to be displayed to the user, how it is going to be displayed to the user. Because if the user is going to think that the the interface is poorly designed, then he's going to label that the software is bad, because he basically does not understand the internal features and how well you have designed. So you need to focus upon the external functions also. Coming on to the sixth principle states that the component level design should be functionally independent. Now, the components, all the components that you're designing, they should focus only on that is one function. It needs to focus on only one function or only one sub-function. That is the software that you're designing. It should be cohesive. Then the seventh principle is component should be loosely coupled to one another or to external environment. Now, coupling stands for how much interdependent are the different modules within the software. How much interdependent are between the different modules. That is in here, if suppose there is first, second, 3, 4 components are there. Now this 4, to complete its task, it needs input from the third component, then 4 needs to complete the task. For 3 to complete, it needs input from 3, and 2 also needs input from 4. That is in here, each and every component, it is dependent on the other component. So in here, the cohesion should be as low as possible whenever you are designing the software. Now let's see the difference between cohesion and coupling. Now cohesion measures about how much the functionalities are related to each other. How much the functionalities are same, that will be identified. That is why whenever you're designing the software, each and every component, they need to focus on only one function or only one sub-function. Whereas coupling defines how much one module is dependent on the other, like this example that I've shown within the whole application. Now, strong cohesion provides the best software. Now, in here, when there is strong cohesion, it provides you with the best software. That is in here, you need to focus on one function, one component, need to focus on one component, one function at the time. One component should focus on one function at the one time. Whereas loose coupling provides with the best software. That is in here, modules should not be dependent on other modules. You need to have as much as less coupling as possible. That is, it might be dependent on one component, that will be fine. That is, it is taking input from one and generating the output. So you need to focus on loose coupling. There should not be many links. That is in here, more links if they are being provided, that need to be avoided. In a good design, the various component parts, example, the different classes have high cohesion. Whenever you're designing, the classes are going to have high cohesion. Whereas whenever you're going for a good design, various component parts should have low coupling. Now, the example of cohesion is making all members visible within the class provides high cohesion. If you're making all the components visible, then it gives you a high cohesion. Whereas having private fields, non-public classes, private methods, it provides you with loose coupling. That is, the other components are not dependent on the features of another component. Coming on to the eighth principle. The eighth principle is design representation should be easily understandable. Now in here, whatever design means the model that is being used. Now why we are designing the model? So that the requirements become clear. Requirements are clear to the developers as well as the end users. Now, if you use a model that is very complex, that is, it is very difficult to understand, it becomes difficult for the developer to identify how he's going to generate the code. It becomes very difficult to identify what are the different functions that need to be embedded within the code. And it also becomes difficult for the testers to test the different parts of the code, and also for the people at the later stages that are going to maintain the software. Now, maintain the software means giving support to the software. That is, if suppose any error occurs, then how you're going to resolve that errors. That is maintaining the software. So the design, the basic intention of model is it acts as a communication guide between the developers and end users. If it is very complex or it does not provide the details that need to be embedded within the software, then it becomes difficult for the coder to generate code, the testers to test the different modules, and the people that are going to maintain the software, it is also going to be difficult for those people. Then the ninth principle is design should be developed iteratively. With each iteration, the design strives for greater simplicity. Now in here, whenever you're designing a model, the software can be developed in different set of iterations. Now the first iteration in here, the first iteration can focus on how you're going to make, how the architecture is going to be there, how you're going to design the software, how you're going to correct the errors that is going to be identified. But the different way were the later iterations. These data iterations, they need to focus on making the design simple. So these are the 9 principles of design. Now going on to the next part, that is the construction practices. Now within this construction, now the construction is encompassed of coding and testing. Now within this code, you can either write the code manually or you can use automatic generation tools to generate the software, or automatically code generation and executable files, you can use that. Now this construction has got 3 different types of practices that is called as the coding, principles and concepts. Now within this coding, principles and concepts, we are going to study 3 different types of principles, that is the preparation principles, the coding principles and validation principles. Now coming on to the first part, that is preparation principles. Now this preparation principle, they need to be followed before you write one line of code. Be sure that you understand the problem you're trying to solve. Now in here, based upon the problem statement, you're going to identify why you're developing the software. Why you're developing the software, this should be very clear. Whereas the second point is understand the basic design principles and concept. Now understanding that what is the basic design principle means, what is the, like the example that I've given for building a game where one player helps the other player. So you need to identify what is the basic design principle, what needs to be there for designing. You need to have the voice input or text commands that you need to identify. You need to understand the basic principles and the different concepts that you're going to use. Then pick a programming language that meets the need of the software to be built. That is, in here, before you start coding, you need to identify which programming language is going to encompass, which programming language will have all the features that you want within the software. Now, if you go for the HTML format, this HTML, it is not technically a coding language, but it is pretty useful. Whereas if you go for the CSS can be used to make changes within the appearance of the HTML format. Changes in appearances. Whereas making use of JavaScript coding, it is going to help you make in the HTML functions. The fourth one is select a programming environment that is going to provide tools that will make your work easier. You need to also identify the programming environment that is going to provide you with all the tools, that is all the extra tools that you're going to use, that is going to help you to implement each and every feature efficiently. That is, if you're using HTML, you're going to make use of the CSS function. So all the tools you're going to identify so that it makes your work easier. The next one is create a set of unit tests. Now, what are unit tests? Unit test means a particular software is going to have multiple components. Unit test means testing each and every component individually each and every component individually is called as unit test. So you need to create unit tests that will be applied once the component you code is completed. So in here, before you write one line of code, you're going to identify all of this 5 things. You need to identify why you're developing the software, all the basic principles, the programming language, the tools that you're going to use, and you're also going to create unit tests. Before coding begins, you're going to make test cases of how you're going to test each and every component. The next is coding principles. Now, within this coding principle, these coding principles, as you begin coding, you need to be sure that you constrain your algorithm by following structured programming. Now, structured programming means when one line is executed, then only the next line is being executed. After one line, the next line will be executed. You're not going to jump from one line to another. Now, the another benefit of using structured programming is that it improves the clarity and quality of the software that you're developing. The next thing, selecting data structures that will meet the need of the design. That is, the data structures that you're going to use, you need to identify that they are going to fulfill the requirement that was stated by the end user. The next is understanding the software architecture. Now, within the design, you have identified the external and internal interfaces. Based upon that design, you need to perfectly identify what the software architecture is, what are the different components, how you're going to code for each and every component. The next is keep conditional logic as simple as possible. Now, conditional logic means all the if-then statement that you're using, that is based upon a specific condition, another line is going to be executed. All of this if and then statements, they need to be kept very simple. The next one is write code that is self-documenting. Now, as coding, we have seen that you can automatically generate code. You're also going to use code that is going to be self-documenting. The next is creating a visual layout. Now, creating visual layout means making use of blank lines or indentations that is going to aid in understanding the software. giving proper spacing, understanding the software, it becomes easy. The next one is validation principle. Now these validation principles are used after you have completed your first coding pass. After completing the first coding pass. Now the first coding pass means if later you're going to encounter some errors, after that you're going to again make those changes. So this validation principles are used once the first step of coding is done. The first part is conduct a code walkthrough when appropriate. Now code walkthrough means you're going to take reviews, you can take technical reviews for your code that you're designing. That is each and every line of code, each and every structure, classes that you use, whether they are properly defined or not. You can take reviews whenever appropriate. The next one is perform unit tests and correct errors you have uncovered. Now what is unit test? If you remember, testing each and every component individually. So when you're testing each and every component individually, you're going to identify errors that are occurring within one component. So when you uncover those errors, you're going to also correct those errors. The next one is refactoring the code. Now what does refactor means? Refactoring means you are going to improve the internal structure of the code, without changing the external behavior. That is, the output should not change. You're going to keep on changing your internal structure. That is, you can make it more robust. So you're going to or make it more simple or robust. So these are the validation principles. So we've completed 3 parts within the coding principles: the preparation principles, coding, and validation principles. Now coming on to the testing principles. Now within the testing principles, the first principle that need to be followed are all tests should be traceable to customer requirement. That is, all the test cases that you're designing, all the test cases, you need to define them based upon the customer's requirement. What they wanted, you're going to test the software based upon the customer's requirement. The next principle is test should be planned long before testing. Now in here, you're going to start planning the test case when the analysis model is complete. Then you're going to give more detail about this test cases when your design is finalized. So before the testing begins, you're going to make a plan, and then you're going to make a detailed representation before actually testing. The next is the Pareto principle applies to software testing. Now the Pareto principle states that the 80% of errors that are uncovered during the testing phase, they are all traceable to 20% of the program components. That is, in here there might be some changes within the components or changes within the requirements that you need to do. Then the 80% of errors can be removed by making changes within the components. The fourth principle is testing should begin in the small and progress towards testing in the large. Now in here, as we have seen that we're going to perform unit testing. That is, in the small, that is, you're going to first test each and every component. Then later you're going to test the entire software. Now testing in here, the entire software means when all the components are integrated within the software, the entire system is going to be tested. The fifth principle is exhaustive testing is not possible. Now it is impossible to execute each and every combination of the software that you're testing, whereas it is possible to go through all the logic of the program and check all the conditions, whether they are working well or they are performing the desired functions or the desired task or not. Then the last is deployment principles. Now within whenever you're deploying the software means you're going to deliver the software, you're going to provide support to the software, and you're going to take feedback from the customer. That is your deployment. 3 tasks within the deployment. The first one is customer expectations for the software must be managed. Now in here, it means that there are multiple iterations within the software. Now in here we have, there are many models that follow the evolutionary models approach. That is, you're not going to deliver the software within one increment. You're going to deliver it in multiple increments. Now in here, if suppose within the first increment you're giving more and more functions that are delivered to the end user, you're giving more function delivery to the end user. So when it is the time to deliver the second increment, the customer is going to expect the same thing, that is, you're going to deliver more functions to the end user, and you are not able to deliver more functions within the end user. So in here, customer expectations should be managed. That is, in here you are not going to provide more functions within the first increment, and you're going to provide very less functions within the less increments. You should not promise anything that is not, you're not going to promise anything that is going to disappoint the end user. The second principle is a complete delivery package should be assembled and tested. Now in here, a complete delivery package means it needs to have all the executable software, any support data that might be used, that are some examples, different documentation, files, any type of support information, all of them things should be gathered, and they need to be performed beta testing. What is beta testing? Beta testing is called as the second type of testing. Beta testing is done by actual users, the people that are going to use the software. You're going to call those people, or you're going to, when you're going to deliver the software, these people are going to perform real-time job on this particular software, and they are going to identify whether each and every task is executed properly or not. So this needs to be done within the second phase. The third one is a support regime must be established before the software is delivered. Now a support regime means, now whenever, suppose an error occurs within the software, so the user expects that you are going to respond immediately and with the accurate information. That is what needs to be done. They are expecting the correct information. So you need to create support guides for any type of error that is going to be encountered. That is, this is falls within the second category. All the support field, all the support information, the installation guides, the troubleshooting guides, each of the things needs to be identified and assembled, and they need to be delivered at the time of deployment. The fourth is the appropriate instructional material must be provided. Now instruction materials means, in here, as I've told you, all the troubleshooting guides needs to be identified, and they need to be given to the end user. The instruction manual, the fifth one is buggy software should be fixed first, delivered later. That is, in here, if there are any bugs, any errors within the software, you need to fix those bugs first, and then you're going to deliver the software. You're not going to tell that the delivery date is due, I'm going to deliver the software, and all the errors will be fixed within the next increment. That attitude is wrong, and you need to fix all the errors and then deliver the software to the end user. And based upon that, the feedback should be collected and recorded. Now with this, we complete the first part of the second unit. That is, all the software engineering principles are completed. The communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment principles are completed. Thank you.